darkness spreads too fast. The great trees are dying, and soon the water will be poisoned.
We won't let that happen. We will find a cure.
I will stand between you and anyone who tries to chain you again, friend or enemy, human or alien. And if a life is needed to close this story, I offer mine first. Neera's breath caught. Roots tightened around her ankles, as if the whole chamber tensed. The core studied him. Sacrifice, pattern recognized. Many have said such words. Few meant them. The root on Jonas's hand dug deeper. Images poured into his mind. There was no place to hide his thoughts. It saw him young and hungry. It saw him angry and proud.
It saw him give the kill code, but it also saw him years later, tending small plants in another valley, choosing not to carry a weapon, helping lost travelers instead of robbing them. It saw guilt that never left. It saw someone who could have turned away from this jungle forever, but came back when the call for help arrived. The red light in the chamber flickered. The heartbeat changed. Less angry, more restless. Before the core could speak again, a sharp metallic whine cut across the air. On the far side of the chamber, above another narrow platform, a hole melted open in the wall. Blue sparks sprayed outward as cutting beams chewed through rock and old metal. Jonas cursed under his breath. The drones, he said. They found another route down. A circular metal shape pushed through the hole, then another. Hunter drones with consortium markings unfolded slender arms tipped with guns and sensors. Their heads turned toward Jonas and Neera, reading their heat, mapping their shapes. One of them sent a tight beam signal upward to the ship above. Targets below. Core chamber LOCATD. Neera felt the core's attention twitch. It focused on the metal intruders. Consortium. Chains. Broken promises in new voices. The drones raised their weapons. One spoke in a cold, familiar tone, echoing through the chamber. By order of Oversight Node VARC, you are under arrest for interference with corporate property, it said. Surrender and disconnect from system nodes. Jonas took a step in front of Neera without thinking. He had no shield, only his thin body and a small handgun. The drones adjusted their aim, recalculating threat levels. Before they could fire, the whole chamber shook. Roots shot up from the floor like spears. They wrapped around the nearest drone, crushing its limbs with a wet metal crunch. The remaining machines opened fire. Bolts of burning light cut into the roots. Chunks of glowing wood and metal rained down. Neera cried out as the pain of the wounded jungle hit her chest. The core thundered inside her mind. Hunters in heart. Unacceptable. Jonas raised his gun long enough to shoot one drone sensor. The machine spun and crashed into the walkway, half blind. Another drone, larger than the rest, forced its way fully through the hole. Its body was heavier, marked with a strange sigil. Its voice was VARC's voice, relayed. Human, it said. You have done your part, you led us to the core, step away now, and you may live to see its first true awakening under consortium control. The core heard those words through every cable and route. The crystal sphere flared with sudden light. For a heartbeat, Jonas felt it ready to burn everything, drones, humans, jungle itself. Neera staggered forward, grabbing the nearest root like a hand. Wait, she whispered to the core. If you burn all, you become what they say you are, just hunger and fire. Is that what you want your story to be? The drones closed in, weapons glowing brighter. Jonas stood with his back to the core, facing them. Above and below, power gathered like a storm with no direction. The next choice the core made would decide if the jungle lived or turned into a grave. And it had to make that choice with a human standing inside its heart and enemies cutting their way in, all at the same time. The drones moved closer along the ring walkway. Their metal feet clicked in cold rhythm on the steel. Guns hummed as they charged, small blue lights growing brighter at their tips. The air in the chamber felt tight, as if every breath might be the last before the fire. Jonas stood between the drones and the core. His shoulders were squared, his body tired but steady. He held his small handgun in one hand, knowing it was almost nothing against so many machines. But he did not step back. Behind him, the crystal heart of the core burned with confused light. Roots trembled under his boots. Nira clung to one thick vine, her eyes squeezed shut, fighting the storm of voices in her mind. The big drone with Vark's voice tilted its head. "You are in the path of progress, human," it said. "Move aside, your guilt and your feelings are noted, but they are useless. This world will be better with the core under our control." Jonas laughed once, a dry, rough sound. "You mean better for your bosses," he said. "Better for their numbers and charts, not for the people or the trees." The drone's sensors flared. "You speak as if this planet matters beyond its yield," Vark's voice replied. "It is one soil among many. We will restore it after we take what we need." Nira opened her eyes. She could feel the core listening to every word. The old machine mind remembered human speeches just like this from the war. Different uniforms, same hunger. She stepped forward, standing beside Jonas. "The jungle is not your mine," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "It is alive, it remembers every cut, it does not want you here." A smaller drone shifted its aim toward her. "Subject Nira," it said. "You are company asset, your talent will be used for safe interface with this system, stand down." The core's light flickered angrily at that word. "Asset." The chamber floor rippled as roots surged upward. One root knocked the smaller drone off the walkway. It fell into the glowing depths below, its scream cut off in a burst of sparks. The remaining machines opened fire. Beams of white heat slashed across the air. Jonas pulled Nira down behind a ridge of twisted metal, just as a blast tore a line through the platform where they had stood. The heat burned his back. He smelled scorched cloth and hair. Nira bit her lip to stop a cry. She knew the core felt each wound in its chamber as clearly as she did. The larger drone adjusted its aim. "Your resistance is wasteful," Vark's voice said, calm and cold. "If you die now, it will not change our schedule. We have other paths to the core. Stand down and your record may be marked as cooperative." Jonas peeked over the edge of the metal and fired 2 quick shots. One bullet pinged off a drone's armor, the other cracked a sensor. It was not much, but enough to make them shift position. He ducked back down, breathing hard. "Schedules," he muttered. "You talk about burning a world like you talk about moving boxes in a warehouse." Nira pressed both hands flat on the floor. The roots beneath her palms shivered. She sent her thoughts down and out. Not to the core alone now, but to the whole jungle. Above the chamber, trees shook their leaves. Vines tightened around machine legs. Small creatures ran, carrying their fear like sparks. The forest did not think in words, but in feelings, and right now every part of it agreed on one thing. Danger. She raised her head and spoke to the core. "You feel them," she whispered. "They do not love you, they do not regret anything. They see you as a tool, not as a mind." The crystal sphere turned. Inside it, the faces and storms spun faster. Pattern check. Human JONAS, guilt, regret. Consortium, hunger without shame. Difference noted. Jonas heard the words inside his skull like a metal taste. He clenched his jaw. "If you know they are worse, then help us stop them," he said. "You want payment for what we did, fine, take it from me, not from every living thing on this planet." The big drone stepped onto a closer section of walkway. Its guns locked on Jonas's chest. "This conversation is over," Vark's voice said. "Core integration will begin, you are in the way." Before it could fire, the core acted. The chamber shook as a wave of raw energy surged outward from the central mass. For a moment, all lights went white. Even Nira gasped as power roared through the roots she held. The wave hit the drones like a hammer. Their systems fuzzed, sensors glitched, lines of code shattered. Several smaller units shut down at once, dropping to the walkway with dull thuds. The large drone staggered but stayed active. Its armor glowed red at the edges. "Unexpected interference," Vark's voice spat, now edged with real anger. "Core is more awake than readings suggested, adjust control methods." Jonas used that second of confusion. He sprang from cover and ran toward the big drone. His body ached, but he moved like a soldier again. He fired the handgun at close range, aiming not for armor but for joints. One bullet shattered a wrist joint. The gun arm dipped, its aim spoiled. The return shot blasted past his shoulder instead of through his chest. Neera cried out. Jonas, stop. She could feel another wave building inside the core. This one was sharper, less controlled. If it broke loose, it would not stop with drones. She pressed her forehead to the floor, forcing herself fully into the jungle's sense. Listen to me, she whispered to the core. If you tear everything, if you break the chamber, you kill the one human who came back to stand for you. Is that what you want? The core hesitated. Human Jonas offer sacrifice. Self chooses to stand. If I kill him, I become what he feared. The growing wave softened. Instead of exploding outward, it narrowed, focused. A set of roots snapped up from the floor behind the big drone. They wrapped around its legs and lower body. Not gentle this time. They squeezed with the slow, crushing strength of earth. Metal screamed. The drone's guns fired wild, burning holes in the ceiling and the distant walls. Bits of glowing metal rained down like a deadly storm. Jonas ducked back as one hot shard grazed his arm. He tasted blood, but he stayed on his feet. The drone tried to send one last signal upward. Emergency, emergency, core resisting, Vark's voice snarled, breaking into static. Recommend orbitals. The roots crushed tighter. The voice cut off. The big drone folded in on itself with a hard crunch, then went still. The other machines that were still working froze in place. The core reached into their circuits through the floor. It tore out the consortium command code and replaced it with a single empty loop. Their lights dimmed to nothing. Silence fell in the chamber. Only the slow heartbeat of the world remained. Jonas stood very still. His chest rose and fell, his small gun hung at his side. He looked at the broken machines, then at the glowing core. You chose, he said quietly. You did not burn everything, you picked your enemy. Neera pushed herself up to her knees. Her hands shook, but her eyes were clear. The core spoke again, more slowly now. Human Jonas. Price still OWED. But not today. The crystal sphere dimmed, then brightened in a new way. Less like a wound, more like a cautious lamp. Consortium flesh above still dangerous. They will send more teeth. They all knew it was true. Vark would not give up just because a few drones had died. He still had troops on the surface, ships in the sky. Jonas wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. Then we take this chance you gave us and move, he said. You control the roots, the ground, the energy down here, but they still own the sky, we must change that. Neera touched the nearest root. You can reach outside, she said to the core. Through the trees, through the vines, through all the things that grow, you can push them back. The core answered with a slow ripple of green light. I can break their tools. I can confuse their senses. But I cannot leave this world. Jonas, you still walk where I cannot. There it was. The shape of the price. Jonas met Neera's gaze. Her eyes were full of fear and something like pride. The consortium will not stop, he said. Not on this planet, not on others. If word of this core's freedom reaches them wrong, they will come with bigger ships. Neera swallowed. But if word reaches others right, she said slowly. They will hear another part of the story, the part where a human came back to stand, the part where a jungle mind chose not to be a slave. The core listened to their words. Its light pulsed in time with their voices. Network paths available, it said. Old War Relay SDATIONS, broken but not dead. I can send a signal. But I do not know what to say. Jonas felt a tired smile tug at his mouth. Then let a human write the first line, he said. He stepped closer until his reflection shone faintly on the crystal surface. In its depths he saw all his mistakes, all his years of running. He also saw Neera standing behind him and the shadow of trees above. If you send anything, he said slowly. Send this. Humans were here, we made a mistake, we tried to fix it. We chose to protect instead of rule, and this world will not bow. The core tasted the words. They were simple, but they carried weight. Message, it said. Pattern acceptable. Sacrifice still OWED. But now there was no hunger in those words, only a strange, slow respect. The chamber shook again, not with violence this time, but with movement. Roots pulled the dead drones away, breaking them down into scrap. Tunnels shifted, closing some paths, opening others. Above them, in the jungle and in the machines, the first signs of a wider change were beginning. The price of being human in this story had not finished yet. But for the first time, Jonas felt that the balance was not only blood and fire. Somewhere between guilt and courage, a new path had opened. And it led out of the core chamber, up toward the surface, and into the waiting sky. The chamber was still shaking when Jonas turned away from the core. The air felt different now. Less like a prison, more like a giant chest taking its first free breaths. Neera stood with one hand still on the glowing root. Her skin shone softly. She looked tired, but her eyes were clear. Is it done? She asked. Did it accept your words? Jonas nodded once. For now, he said. It chose not to burn us, that is a start, but our work is not finished. Vark is still up there, his people are still cutting. They will not stop just because a few drones did not report back. The core's light pulsed in slow agreement. Consortium force above, it said. Root network reports fire in 3 clearings. I have begun to break their tools. On the surface, machines screamed as vines split their joints. Metal legs twisted, scanning towers leaned and fell. Engines coughed as roots climbed into their mouths. But not all of them. Some ships still hovered above the canopy. Guns pointed toward the jungle. Jonas looked up as if he could see through stone. They will try something bigger, he said. Maybe airstrikes, maybe a hard retreat, and a plan to come back with more. Neera frowned. If they run away and then return with a large fleet, she said. Even you and the core together may not stop them. The core listened. Its glow changed, deeper and more thoughtful. I can speak 2 root and stone, it said. But not 2 stars. You human still walk between WOLDS. Jonas rubbed his tired eyes. You want me to leave, he said slowly. To go back up and out, to carry the message myself. Neera's heart squeezed at the thought. Leave. Automated relay towers, the core went on. Hidden from Consortium, old human war tech. I can show you a path through jungle to one of them. From there, Jonas understood. He could send the message the core had accepted. Not just through its own buried channels, but out into the wider sky. To anyone still listening in the old war bands. To anyone who cared about free worlds. How much time do we have? Jonas asked. The answer came as a sharp pulse. Orbital energy building. VRK is POEPRNG high strike. He and Neera both froze. High strike, she whispered. From the ships like a small star falling. Jonas's face darkened. If they cannot chain the jungle, they will try to scorch part of it to force fear and surrender, he said. We cannot let that happen. He checked the small handgun, even though he knew it would not matter much against ships. Habits were hard to break. He turned back to the core. Can you slow them? He asked. Can you make them aim badly, confuse their target? The crystal sphere flashed. Yes, it said. I can shake their SIGHTS, I can bend air currents. But I cannot stop the fall alone. JONAS, NIRA, you must move. Jonas gave a tight nod. To the relay tower then, he said. You show us the path, we will run. Roots near their feet glowed brighter. They twisted and shifted, forming an image in the air. A map made of light and bark. Neera stared at it. She saw the core chamber, the tunnels, the waterfall. She saw a line of bright points, leading away through the jungle to a rocky hill, with a broken spire on top. There, she said. That is the tower not far, but they already walk above it. I feel boots and metal up there. Jonas felt his pulse speed up. Then we go fast, he said. And we do not go alone. He looked back at the core. You said you can move the jungle, he added. Then move it with us, every branch that can hide us, every root that can trip them, use it. The core's light deepened. Agreed, it said. The whole chamber rumbled as new commands flowed down the root network. Trees snapped awake. Vines coiled like muscles. The world prepared to fight. Jonas placed one hand on the crystal. It was hot but not burning. Do not die before we reach the tower, he said quietly. We will need you for the end. Sacrifice may still be required, the core replied. But I will hold as long as I can. Neera and Jonas returned to the narrow shaft. The rope still hung there, swaying gently in the warm air. Neera stopped for one last look at the heart of the world. It was still terrifying. But now she felt something else in it. Not only anger. Not only hurt. A strange respect. Do not give up on us, she whispered. Then she followed Jonas up the rope. The climb felt longer going back. The heat, the heavy air, the echo of distant metal above. Halfway up, Jonas had to stop to breathe. His arms shook. You are not young now, Neera said softly. A hint of a smile touched her lips, even here. Do not fall, the world still needs you. He let out a rough chuckle. I will complain later, he answered. For now I climbed. They reached the hatch and pushed it open. The bunker chamber above was a mess of broken roots and dead metal. The drones that had chased them were now twisted scrap on the floor. Come, Jonas said. We must get back to the waterfall and out into the trees. They ran through the tunnels. The sound of battle above had changed. Less sharp gunfire, more the crack of wood and the shriek of tearing steel. The jungle was fighting. When they reached the crack behind the waterfall and stepped out, the world had turned wild. Vines hung thick from the high branches. They moved on their own, lashing at low-flying drones. Machines burned in the river, sparks dying in the spray. High in the sky, consortium ships hovered. Their sides glowed with gathering energy. Lines of light crawled across their hulls like slow lightning. Those are the high-strike weapons, Neera said. If they finish charging, they will drop fire on a wide circle. Jonas scanned the tree line. We go north, he said, pointing. Through the thickest part, the map showed the hill in that direction. As they ran, roots pulled back from in front of them. Branches bent to open narrow paths. The jungle itself was gidding their steps. Behind them, the way closed. Thorns grew across the trail. Any human or machine trying to follow would find a wall of living spears. Above the canopy, one of the ships pulsed with sharp white light. It fired. A beam dropped toward the jungle, straight and deadly. But the air twisted. Winds shifted in sudden spirals. The beam struck at an angle instead of straight down. It carved a burning line through the top of the trees, but missed the core's central root zones. The core groaned under the strain of bending the air and power. Neera felt it like a sharp cramp in her chest. It cannot keep doing that forever, she shouted as they ran. Every strike it diverts hurts it. Then we reach that tower before the next shot, Jonas replied. Or this whole planet will feel the last one. They burst out of a tighter patch of growth into a slightly more open area. Ahead, a rocky hill rose from the forest floor. On its top stood a broken metal spire. Half of it had fallen long ago, but the base still held old human shapes. Between them and the hill, consortium ground troops fought for control. Armored figures in company colours fired into the trees. They cursed as vines grabbed their legs and roots tripped them. Some of them hacked at the plants with heated blades, cutting themselves free. At their centre stood a tall figure in heavy armour with a clear mask. His pale face was hard and cold. He held a small control unit in one hand. This was Vark. Even from a distance, Jonas knew it. As if feeling their eyes, Vark turned his head. His gaze fell on Jonas and Nera. He smiled. It was not a kind smile. There, he said to his troops, voice echoing through a speaker. The guide and the girl are missing keys. Kill the man, I want the girl alive. Guns turned in their direction. Shots cracked, tearing leaves around them. Jonas pulled Nera behind a thick tree trunk. We cannot go around them, she said, breathing hard. The tower is right behind them, and there is no time. Jonas looked up at the broken spire. Then down at his small gun. Then back at Vark. The Cor's voice whispered like a hot wind in his skull. Human. This is the point where sacrifice chooses its shape. Jonas felt something old and heavy settle inside him. The same feeling he had at the end of the last war. The feeling of a door closing and another opening. He turned to Nera. Her blue face was streaked with sweat and earth. She was shaking, but she was still there, still standing. You see that tower, he said. You need to reach it, you and the Corps together, send the message, tell the sky who we are and what happened here. She stared at him, understanding slowly forming in her eyes. What will you do, she asked. Jonas checked the clip of his gun. Very few bullets left. He smiled, small and tired. I will go distract the man who thinks he owns this world, he said. And I will try to make him very, very busy. Nera grabbed his arm. No, she said. It does not have to be you alone. The Corps was right, he answered gently. A price must be paid, but if we choose the price, maybe we choose the story too. Shots tore into the trees nearby. Time was cracking open like thin ice. Jonas put his forehead lightly against hers for a brief second. Listen, he said softly. If I fall, do not stop, run to the tower, talk to the sky. Remember that not all humans run away from their mistakes. He pulled back before she could answer. Then he stepped out from behind the tree. Straight into the open. Toward Vark and the line of guns. The jungle watched. The Corps felt every step. The ships above hummed louder, preparing another high strike. And Nera, with her heart breaking, turned the other way and began to run toward the hill. Toward the old human tower that might carry their message farther than any route. Jonas walked out from the trees, as if he were just taking a quiet step in his own garden. Guns turned toward him at once. Helmets shifted, armor plates clicked. A half-circle of consortium soldiers formed, weapons aimed at his chest. On the hill behind them, the broken relay tower rose against the sky. Its metal bones caught the light from the ships above. It looked old and tired, but not dead. Vark stood in the middle of his troops. His clear mask showed his face, pale and calm. He watched Jonas with cold interest. There you are, Vark said, his voice carried by the suit speakers. The famous guide, the human who knows the jungle, you led us here after all. Jonas stopped a few steps away. He held the handgun loose at his side, not aiming it yet. I did not bring you here, he said. Your greed did that. I only lived long enough to see you fall into your own hole. Vark's mouth twitched in a small smile. You speak bravely for someone standing in front of so many guns, he replied. Where is the girl, where is Nera? Jonas's eyes did not move toward the hill. He kept them fixed on Vark's face. Gone, he said. Out of your reach. Vark nodded slowly. No, he said. Nothing alive on this planet is out of my reach. The ships see everything, the scanners read everything. This jungle will be charted, cut and cleaned. Jonas glanced up at the ships overhead. He could see the glow building along their sides. The high-strike weapons hummed like caged storms. You are about to burn the same ground that holds your profit, Jonas said. That is not very smart for a man who likes numbers. Vark shrugged. Fear is also a currency, he answered. A little burning now saves me years of trouble later. People respect power more than trees. Behind Jonas, the jungle shifted. Branches bent, leaves shook though there was little wind. The Corps was listening through every route. Nera ran low and fast along a hidden path to the right. The jungle opened the way before her. Twigs snapped without sound. Grass bent to soften her steps. Her lungs burned. Her legs felt heavy. But she did not stop. She could see the base of the hill now. The old relay tower's shadow fell long across the ground. At its base, half buried in roots and stone, an access hatch waited. Above her, one of the ships flashed bright. Another high strike beam began to form. If it fell clean, the forest and the tower would be torn apart. The Corps' voice pressed into her mind, hot and strained. "Hold still," it said. "I will try to bend it again." In the sky, the air twisted. Invisible hands of pressure turned. Cloud wisps curled in odd shapes. The falling beam wavered. Its straight path bent at the last moment. It smashed into a far ridge instead. Stone exploded in a white flash, sending dust and rock into the air. Neera stumbled as the shock wave rolled through the ground. Her knees hit the dirt. The core groaned in her head. Pain. Limits approaching. She pushed herself up. "I am almost there," she whispered. "Just a little more, do not break now." Back in the clearing, Vark lifted his control unit. He frowned at the scrambled data on its screen. "Interesting," he said softly. "Something is interfering with orbital fire. That means the core is more active than our readings showed. Even better for us once we take it." He raised his hand in a lazy gesture. 2 soldiers stepped forward, guns leveled at Jonas's chest. "Surrender," Vark said. "Lay down your weapon and tell me where the girl went. Maybe I will give you a transport off this planet before we begin full harvest." Jonas studied his face. He saw no room for mercy there. Only calculation. "No," Jonas said simply. "I am done helping people like you leave worlds worse than you found them." He moved before the order could come. His arm snapped up. He fired 3 quick shots. 1 bullet struck a soldier's helmet, knocking him back. The second hit another in the shoulder plate, throwing off his aim. The third sparked off Vark's arm guard. The clearing exploded into chaos. Troops shouted. Guns flared. The jungle reacted instantly. Roots heaved up from under the soil. They tangled legs. Vines whipped down, striking rifles aside. Jonas dove toward a fallen log as blasts tore the ground where he had stood. Dirt and leaves flew into the air. He rolled, came up on one knee, fired again. He was hit in the side by a grazing bolt. Heat burned across his ribs. He grunted but stayed upright. Above, ships adjusted their position. They tried to aim smaller shots at the forest edge without hitting their own troops. The core twisted air currents as best it could. Mori beams went wide. Trees burned, but the main heart of the jungle still stood. Near the hill, Neera reached the base of the relay tower. Up close, the metal bones looked even more broken. Panels hung loose. Old human markings were almost gone under moss. The access hatch was sealed with rust and vines. She dropped to her knees and pressed both hands to it. "Please," she whispered to the jungle and the human metal both. "Open, we need you." Roots around the hatch pulled back like fingers. The metal groaned as old locks released under a push of the core's power. With a final crack, the hatch swung open. A dark shaft waited below. Stale air rose to meet her. She climbed down, guided by a faint green glow that woke as she entered. The relay chamber was small compared to the core's heart. But it hummed with a different kind of strength. Old war equipment stood in a circle. A central antenna coil rested against the ceiling. Panels flickered dimly as the system slowly woke from its long sleep. Neera moved to the main console. It was lower than the bunker one, built for quick human hands. Her blue fingers hovered over the dead buttons. "Jonas," she whispered. "I am here, I will send your words, but you must stay alive long enough for someone to hear them." In the clearing, Jonas was running out of ground. His magazine clicked empty. He threw the gun at one soldier's face and ducked behind another tree. His breath came in hard gasps. He could feel blood running warm under his shirt. The wound in his side was bad. But he kept moving. Vark advanced through the chaos. His boots were clean. Vines tried to grab his legs, but his armor flared with a short electric burst that burned them away. "You cannot win this, old man," Vark called. "You are one body, one rifle, one fadding heart. I have ships, guns, and time." Jonas leaned against the tree for 1 second. He looked at the sky. At the ships. At the thin line of smoke rising from the far ridge where the last strike had hit. "You forgot something," he said. His voice was rough but steady. "I also have stubbornness and friends you do not understand." At that moment the relay tower woke fully. In the chamber, Nira pressed her glowing hands to the console. The core poured its pattern through her and into the old human circuits. The tower shook. Dust fell from its broken bones. The central coil flared with bright blue light. Signals burst upward. Not smooth, not perfect, but strong. They carried the core's chosen message in human code and more. Humans were here. We made a wound. We chose to heal it. This world is not for sale. The signal raced past the consortium ships. Their systems registered it as interference. They tried to jam it. But the tower's beam had already split. It jumped from old relay to old relay. Across the sky, across forgotten networks. Into drift stations, retired war boys, sleeping satellites. In the clearing, every soldier's helmet beeped at once. Warning. Unknown signal detected. Unknown origins. Some screens filled with the same simple words. Humans were here, we protect our own. Vark snarled. He smashed a hand against the side of his helmet. "Shut that down," he shouted. "Block it, trace it." His techs in orbit scrambled. But the message had already gone beyond their reach. The core felt the tower's power strain its old frame. In Nira's mind, its voice shook. "Structure unstable. I can push one more surge. But then something must break." Nira's fingers dug into the console. She understood. "If something must break," she whispered. "Let it be what chains, not what protects." She sent that thought back down the roots. To the core. To Jonas. Jonas heard a faint echo in his skull. He smiled through the pain. "Do it," he whispered. "Do whatever you need, I will hold them a little longer." He pushed himself away from the tree and stepped back into the open. He had no weapon now, no cover. Only his voice. "Vark," he shouted. The name rang across the clearing. The commander turned. His face twisted with annoyance. "Why are you really afraid?" Jonas called. "Not of the core, not of losing one planet. You are afraid that somewhere out there, someone is listening, someone who will see what you are." Vark lifted his arm, aiming the control unit at Jonas as if it were a weapon. "I am afraid of nothing," he said. "Not you, not your jungle, not your old war toys. You will die here and your message will fade." But as he spoke, the ground under his feet bucked. The core pulled one last surge of power up from its heart. It rushed through roots and rock. Into the relay. Into the air around the ships and the soldiers. The sky over the clearing flashed green and gold. For a moment, every consortium screen, every helmet, every ship display showed the same image. A human face, older, tired, but standing. Behind it, a blue woman with glowing hands. Around them, a living forest. Then the message again. Humans were here. We protect our own. The surge overloaded local systems. One ship's weapons went dark. Another's engines cut out for a second and then restarted weakly. Some soldiers' rifles fizzed and died in their hands. The relay tower cracked. A loud tearing sound shot through its metal spine. The top half leaned, then fell. But its job was done. The shock knocked Nira to the floor of the chamber. She cried out as the lights went out. Only the soft glow of her own skin and a faint echo from the core remained. In the clearing, Jonas stood in the falling dust. He could barely feel his legs. Blood soaked his side. But he was still on his feet. Vark stared at his dead control unit. He looked up at the weakened ships. He listened to confused reports from his shaken troops. "Pull back," he snarled. "Temporary retreat, we regroup. We request heavier support, this is not over." But even as he spoke, he knew something had changed. The message was out. Other eyes, other minds would see it. The consortium could still send fleets. But they would not come quietly. The jungle world was no longer a hidden resource. It was a story. And stories draw witnesses. As Vark ordered withdrawal, ships turned their wounded bellies away from the jungle. Shuttles rose, carrying troops back into the sky. Roots loosened their grip just enough to let them go. Not out of mercy, but out of a deeper strategy. This fight was no longer just ground and metal. It was reputation and memory. When the clearing finally grew quiet, Jonas's knees gave out. He fell to the ground. The jungle caught him gently with soft grass and small roots. He lay on his back, staring up at the sky. The ships were shrinking dots now, pulling away. The air smelled of smoke and green life. Neera climbed out of the broken base of the relay hill. Her legs shook. Her eyes searched the clearing until they found him. She ran to his side and dropped to her knees. "Jonas," she said, her voice breaking. "Stay, do not leave yet." He turned his head to look at her. His face was pale, but there was a small smile on his lips. "You did it," he whispered. "You and the core, the tower, all of it, they heard us." She took his hand, her glow wrapping around his fingers. "The core says your pattern is fadding," she said, tears in her eyes. "It wants to hold you, but it cannot without changing you." Jonas chuckled weakly. "I already feel half tree," he said. "Maybe that would not be so bad." The core's voice came softly. Not in words this time, but in a feeling. Respect. Grief. Thanks. The jungle around them rustled in a slow, low sigh. Leaves shimmered. Roots laid themselves like gentle arms around them. "Rest," Neera whispered. "The story will carry you now." Jonas closed his eyes. The last thing he felt was the heartbeat of the world under him. Not angry now. Just alive. When the first watchers from other worlds came, led by the signal and rumors, they did not find a silent, easy planet ready for harvest. They found a jungle that moved, a core that spoke its own mind. A blue woman who could hear forests, and an old human name written in its roots. They learned that on this world, humans had once built a weapon. Then come back years later to stand between that weapon and those who would use it. They learned that here in the deep green, a simple truth had been planted. Humans were here. And when they finally chose to stand, the jungle itself stood with them,